der wird jetzt mal einen kleinen Vortrag halten.
Lauter!
Ja.
Lauter!
Leiser da hinten!
Einmal AlanRedhouse, einen herzlichen Applaus, kann ich mal sagen.
I don't speak any German, sorry. Nico is going to help explain what I'm saying, I hope.
Okay, I didn't know.
Oh, I thought that's what you I don't have any formal presentation here. It would be in English if I did, and I thought it would be more useful to say a few things first and then take questions if anyone has any questions. Depending on what the questions are, I may or may not answer them. So, you need to say them.
Ich glaube, ich brauche nicht übersetzen, oder? Ich kann auch gerne übersetzen. Also herzlich willkommen alle und das war die Essenz.
I think he just said I've got a mark on my trousers, I'm not sure. First of all, thank you all for coming, and thank you for Andreas and Guido for organising this. Thank you all for your patience. You have seen here that it has paid off. We have OS4 and AmigaOS4 hardware, and thank you especially to Hyperion and Freedom Brothers and everyone else who's contributed to OS4 in making this a reality. So to speak up? Okay. What?
Wir verstehen hier hinten nichts. Lass uns mal die Fenster zu machen, ich glaube, dann ist es wirklich besser.
Ist zu laut, ist zu laut. Background. Macht ihr mal Fenster zu, alle? Oder ihr könnt auch ein bisschen noch nach vorne kommen. Also 2 Meter sind hier noch frei. Wenn ihr alle ein bisschen durchrutscht?
Und wir rutschen alle ein bisschen durch.
Ja, kann ich.
Ich habe mir extra ein Seitwinkel geholt.
Okay. This time last week I was at a show in Italy, and that was the first proper computer show. It was not an Amiga show, it was at a big exhibition centre across 4 halls, and the Amiga stand was so busy that the organisers thought we were giving away free lunches, free beer. There were so many people who had thought that the Amiga was dead, who had been in the computer business, were passing the stand and were incredibly interested in seeing OS4 running on very low power consumption hardware. That is very important for the future. We think that we can probably sell no more than 4,000 or 5,000 Amiga 1s to people who are existing Amiga users. If we want the OS4 to be successful, and we want the Amiga 1 type technology to be successful, we have to sell it into the industrial market. I cannot get prices down on this hardware unless I can buy them in lots of 50,000 or 100,000. I have already had 2 inquiries which amount to 10,000 units a month in the UK. They're only inquiries, they're not sales, and we're not ready to sell it just yet. And people in general want to buy it because it's going to save money for their business. And my job, and the job of most of the dealers here who are interested around the world who are interested in the industrial market, is to prove to industrial users that they will make money by using OS4 and PowerPC technology. Some of you will know from AmigaWorld.net that there's a chap there called David Pitcher, Dave P, who is quite senior in IBM. Completely internally, they have done some exercises using Amiga 1 hardware for transaction processing. and they have found that they get 4 times the transaction rate with OS4, even in its beta stage, than they do with Linux on the same hardware. What that means is, if we can find an application where that's important, we can put in a half the speed of processor and get twice the performance of Linux. That is a very cost advantageous thing to do. As many of you know, I've been over to the Far East to China, and it's been, apart from a long flight, it's been a very interesting place to be. Their economy is doubling, it's growing at 8% every year, and their use of computers is doubling every year. They've traditionally used Intel-type technology. The power consumption of Intel-type technology is going up by 20% a year, and the lines cross, they will run out of generating capacity in between 4 and 5 years' time. If every new PC in China used the G3 processor for doing the same sort of thing, they would save $50 billion a year in electricity costs. The reason I emphasize this is not that I'm deserting by any means the traditional Amiga users, but we have to find a means of selling this technology to a bigger audience. My background has always been in selling systems into industry. I fell into the Amiga market by accident. Accidents happen, I'm still here. So, but we have, Ben and I met with Gary Hare on Thursday, and really just to make sure that all our expectations of the new relationship with an Amiga are okay. There are a few things we have to sort out, but not much. We all see the big opportunity for pushing this incredibly efficient operating system into new volume markets, different markets. They're looking at different markets to us. But in order to do that, we need to have the product to be completely correct first. That means doing extensive testing, making sure there are no issues with hardware or drivers, that we have all the tools we need to push into industrial markets. And one of the things that many of you will have heard me talk about and demonstrate on Linux in the past is using the Windows Remote Desktop. We have an agreement that is being ported and will be distributed with OS4. That means you will be able to use your Amiga 1 running OS4 for the things you want, and make it look exactly like a Windows machine for things that you have to use Windows for. If I'm going to talk to a call center manager, he has 1,000 workstations. It is not only a lot cheaper in electricity for him to use OS4 with a Windows Remote Desktop linked into a Windows server. It's not only cheaper in electricity, it's a lot cheaper in support. Because with OS4 we can put everything, including the Windows Remote Desktop software, on a flash card. We have no moving parts, no fans, no coolers, little bulge on the back of a TFT, and nothing for anyone to make go wrong. It won't even run x86 viruses, which is another good thing. Everything, all the problems, are then very positively put back on the Windows server. If anything goes wrong, it's the Windows server. And in time, for fixed set of applications like in a call center where there's only a limited amount of things that people are doing, those applications could conceivably, but no promises, be ported to OS4 on a back office server as well. So it's those sort of mechanisms that we're looking to promote OS4, even though we're not making a big thing of it being Amiga. We're producing, using the efficiencies that we all know about, why we all like OS4, built into OS4 with PowerPC hardware as a tunnel into the commercial world. So that's my job. I hope I'm successful at it, because if we are, the price of all that hardware goes round through the floor, and at that point we can start reintroducing it into the high street shops as a home computer. But we have to get into industry first. So that's really all I want to say. I hope that at least 2 of you have understood what I've tried to say, and if not, I guess Nico may be able to translate. Is there anybody who wants a break to have an interpretation at this stage? Or a break to have a beer or anything like that? If not, I'll take questions, I'll answer them as best and as honestly as I can. Some things I can't answer either because I don't know, which is probably most of the cases, or because it's commercially confidential and we really just need to keep certain things under wraps at the moment.
Wenn jemand Fragen hat?
Also ich will auf Deutsch, weil ich möchte, dass der Herr mir erklärt, warum ich mir ein Amiga One anstatt eines Pegasus 2 kaufen soll, obgleich dieser gewisserweise technisch besser und günstiger ist.
What is the advantage of the Amiga One in comparison to Pegasus 2?
Well, I see the advantage in two things, two ways particularly, and that is that it is properly funded. It is not a subsidised product, and it makes enough margin for me to come here and Guido to put these sort of events on. It is obviously an officially supported OS4 product. On the technicalities, we all know there's been a lot of things that have been said, most of which have not been had any particular basis, in fact, as far as the Amiga One is concerned. But we are, and I am convinced that this is a very sound product. As far as the technical details of the product is concerned, of the Pegasus is concerned, I have no idea. No, that's somebody else's business. They can do what they want with it. But I know intimately, as you would expect, the costings of building a product like this, and the sums with the Pegasus don't add up. That's all I can say.
Also im Prinzip ist es ein System, was vom Amiga unterstützt wird, also von Amiga Inc., von verschiedenen Firmen. Es ist ein offizielles Produkt. Es ist technisch nicht so weit entfernt von Pegasus, das ist uns allen klar. Aber gut, es ist immer eine Entscheidungsfrage. Also ich kann immer nur von anderen Märkten sprechen, warum benutzen Menschen einen Mac, obwohl der Mac teurer ist, weil der Mac effizienter ist und technisch ausgereifter und unterstützt wird von verschiedenen Firmen, nicht nur von einer Hauptfirma wie Microsoft, Intel, AMD. Und im Prinzip ist das auch anwendbar auf den Amiga-Markt. Weitere Fragen?
Wie passt das dann mit der OS4-Strategie zusammen, dass wenn es dann Clips rauskommen? Weil man hört halt viel von Amiga-Support, aber es gibt ja keine Schwierigkeiten. Und er spricht von chinesischen Märkten, die sicherlich kein Amiga ausverkauft haben. Also ich sag mal, das passt ja vor allem stellt er die Behauptung auf, dass das Pegasus irgendwie unwirtschaftlich wäre und da frage ich mich mal, wo er das sein.
Ich denke, Unwirtschaftlichkeit können wir uns selber ausrechnen. Bei dem Preis macht die Firma keinen Gewinn.
Aber warum sagt er zu technischen Sachen, kann man nichts sagen, dass er mich nicht auskennt, aber zu betriebswirtschaftlichen Sachen sagt er was, obwohl er da keine Fragen gibt?
Alan ist ja kein Techniker, das müssen wir dazu sagen. Er ist ja derjenige, der das System vermarktet.
Ja, aber ich meine, was den Pegasus angeht, kann er da auch nur eine Glaskugel.
Was das technisch angeht?
Nee, was die Kosten angeht. Ich sag mal, warum kommt er da auf jeder Veranstaltung mit der Sache, dass die Amiga-Boards für die finanziert sind?
Just another question about the Pegasus, and I hope this is the last one.
This discussion is not going.
Where do you see the difference between the calculation of both systems? Why do you think Pegasus 2 is not economically?
I know what the components cost. I know how much it costs to have them properly assembled. I know how much the dealers need to make to support a product like that, particularly in the low volumes that both boards are produced in. And even if the chips were cheaper on the Pegasus, the price is not right to support all the costs that it needs to carry.
Verstanden? Also ja, im Prinzip die Ja, im Prinzip sind die Bausteine so teuer, dass wir zu diesem Preis kein Board herstellen können und zu diesem Preis dann auch die Entwickler nicht unterstützen können, die an dem System arbeiten. Und auch im Hintergrund. Also ich möchte eine Sache klarstellen, ich habe nichts gegen Pegasus, ich persönlich. Nicht, dass das jetzt falsch rüberkommt.
Ja gut, also ich will noch von den Pegasus wegzukommen, wann gibt es denn jetzt noch alles hier, was ich offiziell im Laden kaufen kann mit dem Benetzung? Weil das wäre noch der Hauptgrund, das Gerät aufzukaufen.
Das OS4 Pre-Release erscheint am 21. Mai, wenn ich es jetzt richtig in Erinnerung habe. Ist das richtig? Kann das einer bestätigen? Ist richtig. Und ich denke, dass die Entwicklungsarbeiten, oder sagt vielleicht lieber einer von den Entwicklern etwas dazu, in welcher Zeit abgeschlossen wird etwa?
Let me just say something else about cost, maybe which will help. Just forget the hardware for the time being. If you take OS4, OS4 is built on OS 3.1. Let's assume we pay no royalties for OS 3.1, what has already been built. By the time OS4 is completely boxed and released, not pre-released, it's a consumer release, it will have had about 40 man-years of effort. At a commercial rate, that would have cost about $8 million. If we say that we can sell in this market 4,000 boards, that means each copy of OS4 should cost $2,000, right? That's included. MorphOS is included in the price of Pegasus.
Ich habe eine Frage bezüglich Onboard von Amiga One. Dürfte, glaube ich, bei den momentanen Boards nicht funktionieren.
Onboard Sound?
Richtig. Wird es bis zur Erscheinung von OS4, ich schätze mal in der zweiten Hälfte des Jahres, dann Revisionen geben, die den Onboard Sound unterstützen oder?
What about onboard sound? Will it be supported in the near future?
The onboard sound is working on the Micro A1, and that's because we've worked around the VIA problem by putting a different codec on there. And on the main Amiga 1, there is no reason that it shouldn't work if we could get the documentation on which registers to, secret registers to program in the VIA Southbridge, but that has consumed a huge amount of effort without getting any results so far. And we've taken the view that it's just as easy to put a sound card on, since most people want a sound card anyway.
Also es scheint im Moment ein Problem bei den Registries zu geben, Registry Code, und ein Datum wurde jetzt nicht genannt, aber ich denke, das wird auch der Fall sein, dass die meisten Leute ohne eine externe Soundkarte einbauen werden.
Da habe ich aber auch noch mal eine Frage zu. Also eben wurde ja gesagt, ich bezahle ja so viel mehr Geld dafür, weil ich ja den offiziellen Support habe. Aber ich kann mir auch eine Soundkarte holen, wenn das Board kaputt ist. Oder wie?
Gut, das Board ist ja nicht kaputt, das wird softwareseitig nicht unterstützt im Moment. Bei dem Standard ATX Board. Also
unter Linux könnte ich den Onboard Sound zum Beispiel nutzen. Weil Linux kann ja normalerweise mit nicht arbeiten.
Do you know about the Linux distribution? Is it working with the onboard sound?
No, it doesn't. It's the same problem. It's how you initialize the communications between the codec and the sound chip in the VIA Southbridge. Exactly the same hardware works under Linux on x86, but it doesn't work under Linux on PPC.
Not yet.
No, and VIA will not tell us how they do it. As far as I think it was the interrupts are concerned, one of the developers found out by accident a secret register that needed programming, which fixed the problems. We believe the same it occurs with sound, but finding a secret register in a chip with no documentation is incredibly difficult. And at some point you have to say, no, there are better ways to use this technical resource. huge amounts of man effort in to fix something which is immediately fixed by putting a $7 sound card in. Where do you draw the line?
Okay.
Eine Frage zum Release. Wie sieht das für die Amiga One-Besitzer aus? Gibt es dieses Early Bird Offer noch? Also wird das jetzt nur an die ausgeliefert, die bereits am Gerät haben? Oder kriege ich das Post-Event noch, wenn ich jetzt ein Board kaufe? Gibt es schon irgendwelche Kalkulationen, was das kosten soll? Weil er sagt ja, er kennt sich mit Zahlen aus, dann kann er vielleicht auch sagen, was es dann im Verkaufspreis dann mal kosten soll.
Would you surprise the end price for the Amiga One with OS4? And is it available now for the customers who want to buy it now?
Well, OS4 is pre-release, is to be shipped, let's say within 10 days. It's on its way back. It has to have serial numbers put on it, shipped to us and shipped to dealers. So we have a little time frame involved in that. People who have bought early bird systems will get that shipped to them free of charge, and they will be subscribed via the serial number to a download website where they will receive the latest updates as and when they're available. People who buy the Amiga One from now on will have that pre-release shipped to them and have the same downloads. They may or may not, depending on Hyperion's generosity, get a box set at the end shipped to them. But they will have that the pre-release shipped with them, with the boards. But it will have to be paid for. These 40 developers out there, 40 man-years of development time, most people have contributed on a nothing down and get a royalty basis. And most people have to have their rewards for this 2.5 years, 3.5 years worth of effort. So it has to be sold, and this is not firm yet, but we believe the end user price will be around about €100 for each copy of OS4, which is still pretty cheap compared with Windows and a lot more satisfying.
What will be the end price of the Amiga One now, up to date?
Same as it has been.
Hardware.
Yeah. The way the early bird system worked is that we came to, Hyperion, us and Amiga came to an arrangement whereby Amiga waived the royalty we have to pay for them for the name and license and all that stuff for the early bird systems. Hyperion cut us a deal where we paid less for OS4 because it was the early bird systems and we subsidised the product. So those together add up to the price of OS4 essentially. So there's no slack in the hardware prices to be able to reduce anything.
Ich habe akustisch leider nicht alles mitbekommen, weil das Sorting ging, aber ich denke, dass die Software wird um die €100 kosten dann später. Guido, kannst du uns den Preis vom Amiga One jetzt sagen, was er jetzt kostet und was er in Zukunft kosten wird? Wenn er uns überhaupt hört? Das ist ja unglaublich. Also ich glaube, er liegt im Moment über 880 oder sowas, wenn ich mich nachdenke.
Nur das Board, ja?
Also ich hätte was von 870 gelesen, glaube ich.
Ich meine sowas um die Kante, ja.
Na, also noch zusätzlich die €100 bis plus 4.
Das wird dann dazu kommen, ja. Was? Inklusive dann.
Wird es heuer noch irgendwelche Änderungen an Bord geben, sprich neue Versionen oder Änderungen an Bord? Oder
ob es die in Zukunft gibt?
Ja, im Laufe des Jahres noch oder nicht wie 733 oder so, der Speicherinterface oder ähnliches?
Are there any updates expected for this year or next year for the Amiga One?
Yes, I mean, I'll explain the plan if you wish. Not custom board. As most of you know, we've had a few of these produced, which have been out with various developers, including David Wentler, who's got one here, etc. This is the Micro A1. As a result of that feedback, we're having a few modifications made to this, and particularly to be able to support a 3-slot riser card. And we were having a number of these made, a reasonable number of these made. This is the version 2, or if you like it, will be the version 2A. And those will go on sale. They will be shipped with memory, and obviously they will be shipped with graphics as well, because the graphics is on board. We haven't. At the moment, it's likely to be the 7500 chip. We are currently, but this is only going to be in sort of Amiga enthusiast volumes. It's not going to be in industrial volumes. We will ship some of these into industry as evaluation boards. What we're doing at the moment is finalising. It's probably going to take another month or two. The version 3. The version 3 will be different in a few ways. It will be essentially a board designed for industrial applications. So it will be stripped down as far as we can make it, but with expansion capabilities, not just for industry, but for you guys as well. We will be providing a specification to Jens so that he can build little add-ons and all that sort of thing. But essentially, we will put on memory. I'm not sure at the moment whether it's going to be 256 or 512 megabytes soldered on board, because that keeps the volatility of memory prices down. Chip prices are a lot less volatile than memory module prices. And with a small amount of extra work, we can use the chips that are used on DDR memory, even though they'll only look like SO DRAM on this. So that'll be on there. There will be an extra but special PCI header here, around here, which will take a flat mount card, very similar to the CPU module, so that for any requirements for enhanced I/O, we don't have to redesign the whole board. We can still ship and maintain the volumes for that board. So if somebody wants wireless networking, we can put a board on there which has the PCMCIA slot. We can put a wireless network card on. If they need Gigabit Ethernet, it can go on that board. If they need anything else, it can go on that board, which is a lot lower cost thing to produce, to customize this whole thing. As far as the graphics card is concerned, we're currently in discussions with ATI to find out what chipsets they can supply us at a reasonable price that have got a long lifetime, because that's quite important for our board as well. It's currently, the current things in the ring are the 9000 series chips and hello, it's not me. Hello, Mum. Or the radio mobility, but the radio mobility seems to be very expensive at the moment. It has some advantages because it's got built-in memory. That saves us some board space, so we have to balance the things up. The CPU module will still be as here, and for industry we will be shipping mainly, it's my belief, with something like the 500 megahertz CXE CPU, because we can buy those very cheaply. With OS4, if Dave Pitcher's transaction processing things are right, it's like the equivalent of a 2 gigahertz one in Linux terms. So we should be able to get good performance. We've had a 2.5-inch slot on there, and that's not particularly just for 2.5-inch drives, but it's so that we can have a flash card adapter, which is directly powered from that for booting. There's a small amount of work needs to be done in U-boot to allow it to boot from the secondary channel instead. But that means we have a board there which is can be entirely solid state for certain applications. The fact that we will keep this PCI slot, the fact that we have a small board which is bolted to the main board, means that it's a very robust piece of equipment that can be shipped around in goods that have to be transported worldwide without the mechanical problems of trying to use a PCI slot. So we're anticipating that industrial board being coming out in, well, I just say autumn or fall in American terms, so the period running up to Christmas. But it will be targeted at industrial markets, and we need to get it right so that at that price the volumes will actually be sufficient that we should be able to price it quite well. But it probably won't be available to Amiga people until into next year, because it will be essentially an industrial product. So it will be a cut-down product at that stage for industrial markets, and we probably won't have produced the enhancements that most people will want, faster CPUs, enhanced I/O cards for this home market. Towards the end of the year as well, we will be producing a mini ATX board, similar size as the Pegasus. But we will be waiting until the Articia SA or the Articia P chip, which support DDR, have built-in interrupt controllers and DMA controllers, can be put on that board. And that will only ever be manufactured in relatively low quantities. It will be a developer board for people in this market. So it won't be a particularly cheap board, but what we will do is make sure that we put on as much I/O functionality as possible for the price. So it will have gigabit Ethernet, it will have FireWire, USB 2, and all those sorts of bells and whistles. It will have 3 slots plus AGP, surround sound, all those things. That is at a reasonably advanced stage, but the first thing we need to do is get the Articia P out in available volume so that can be we will engineer around that. So I guess we're probably looking about first quarter next year for that sort of product. Does that help? Helps me if you buy them. Sorry? I know, do you want next? Is there anything else? Any more questions?
What's the fastest CPU you can support with this board?
I think if the frequency are here, that they have a 7447 running at 1.3 gigahertz. They're all the same connector, so you can upgrade to any of the boards, any of the CPU modules in any of the Amiga ones, given the appropriate cooling. But for industrial markets, we really want entirely passive cooling. One of the biggest causes for failures in the PC market is this $2 fan on the CPU dying. That's a real big thing. Anything else? Or am I done?
It's okay.
Wird es ein offizielles Gehäuse geben, also ein Wiedererkennungswert vom neuen Amiga, also irgendein Standardgehäuse, oder wo man sagen kann, das ist der Amiga One?
Will there be any standard Amiga One tower or desktop?
Any trademarks from the old Amiga that you can see? This is an Amiga, not a.
There will probably be some items shipped, maybe shipped, or certainly available, standard items. But as far as cases are concerned, first of all, fashions change every 6 months, and for a small market, you can't get anything custom produced. Secondly, fashions are different in different parts of the world. And thirdly, things like towers are just too heavy and expensive to ship around. So our business will be producing these things that can go in systems that people like you don't provide. And you need to provide your ideas to be there.
Hat jemand an mich noch eine Frage? Nicht?
Eine Frage da hinten.
Yeah, what happens when this year CLP or SDA isn't released like last year or the year before?
And what isn't released? It's certainly it's come out of the forge. I mean, it is working in the labs at the moment. There are a few things to tune on it. So, but there is a big surge of interest in PowerPC, particularly since the Xbox announcement, and money in getting things developed is a lot easier this year than it was last year. I don't have to say any more to that. And it is a key component.
They have the chip announced for the second quarter 2004.
Look, I'm afraid like the rest of the chip industry, like the rest of the computer industry, announces on specifications, not on shipment. That's what happens. In my plans, I try to be realistic. I don't always get it right, but I try to be more realistic than people who tell me things. Like if they tell me something, I give you my estimates, not their estimates.
Ja, kommt das Final Release von OS4 danach geliefert? Ist ja mal nicht ein Early Board. Also das
Alle, die schon ein Early Bird haben, bekommen natürlich jetzt OS 4.0 kostenlos. Alle, die noch sich kurzfristig entscheiden, einen Amiga One zu kaufen an Bord, wird 800 € kosten inklusive. Wenn mein Stock weg ist, das sind, muss ich fairerweise sagen, logischerweise auch diese Rechner hier, die heute benutzt werden, ich denke, sind dann gut getestet. Das, was dann später kommt, da weiß ich noch nicht den exakten Preis, aber ich denke mal, der Preis wird so bleiben, plus OS 4.0 um die 100 € zusätzlich.
Nein, aber was ich meine ist, wenn ich mir jetzt das Board kaufe mit Imperial, kriege ich das dann aus wieder nachgeliefert?
Ach so, das OS, dann, wenn man jetzt das Board kauft, zu welchem Preis auch immer, mit dem Pre-Release ist anschließend das OS 4 durch den Kauf der Pre-Release-CD bereits bezahlt.
Und das Pre-Release kann ich auch als normaler User erwerben oder muss ich
Das kann ich nur kaufen mit dem Amiga One und eventuell später als eine separate CD für Blizzard PPC und oder, das weiß ich natürlich nicht, ob auf der CD dann das OS 4 dann praktisch für die Blizzard und für Cyberstorm PPC drauf ist, oder ob es eine separate gibt. Das wissen die Frieden Jungs wahrscheinlich auch noch nicht.
Am 21.05. rauskommt?
Das am 21.05. ist absolut nur für die Leute, die bereits ein Board gekauft haben. Es wird grundsätzlich, das ist der Stand der Dinge, nie ein Solo-Board geben und zusätzlich eine CD. Es ist immer ein Amiga One und OS 4 ist ein Bundle. Ist das korrekt?
I don't know what you said.
Amiga One and OS 4 and bundle.
They will always be sold together, but as far as, because they're coming from different ends, they're priced separately and they have different margins because, you know, one of the things we're looking at as the market develops and as boards become very robust, as they have to be for industry, then the support costs that we have and Guido has will be less, and we can take that account into the pricing, because at the moment Guido has to make some money to support users, as we do to support dealers, and as more boards get spread, that cost goes down. With OS4, we expect that support cost to be lower because it will be dealt with largely directly by mailing lists and things. So the margins involved tend to be smaller. So the plus side is that most of your money that you pay for OS4 actually goes back to the people who wrote it, which is a good thing in my view.
Bitte noch eine eher historische Frage, und zwar, wann ist denn eigentlich die Idee gekommen, Amiga One? Wie ist dazu gekommen oder was war der Ausschlag?
When did you have the inspiration to produce an Amiga One or distribute an Amiga One?
Out of stupidity, I think. Our main market, our main interest has always been in using Amigas in industrial applications, and it was clear that what we did in terms of our stocks of CD32s as base products, or 1200s as base products, was going to run out. We still have a lot of customers that use those, and they needed something that went further forwards. And most people who had exposure to the Amiga operating system, OS 3.1 as it was, or before, really believe and understand how efficient a computer can be. And that actually has to translate into an ability to save people money. And that is why we've used Amigas in industrial applications for those applications they're suitable for, and why my customers, and we know customers of other dealers and other people around the world, needed a replacement product. That's my main incentive. I'd like to say it's because I really love you guys and I really wanted to spend a fortune supporting you, but it isn't. I want to make some money out of this. not just supplying friends. I mean, it would have been cheaper for me to give you all, $1,000 each than do this board. But ultimately we will make money out of it. That will increase the user base and will lower the price of hardware, and hopefully give us an opportunity of spreading the word in the consumer market as well.
What is the maximum frequency at which Amiga 1 can run patches without moving parts? And what is your target price area for the higher micro A1 board?
Well, the final target price area is one of those issues that I'm not going to tell you. So there we go. It's not a question really of how fast can it run. I mean, if you buy a more expensive CPU, then it can run cooler. So for example, in the Motorola world, the 7447 runs cooler than the 7445, but costs a lot more. So you can run it at a higher clock speed and still have it passively cooled. But the key thing is, for the markets that we need to tackle first, we are going for ones which are not computationally intensive. So the question doesn't really arise. What my question is what is the cheapest CPU that I can put on here that does the job that is passively cooled? And that is the 500 megahertz 750 CXE at the moment. If IBM come to me and offer me some other CPU with 3 watts consumption, fine. But at the same price, I would use that.
Ja, habe ich noch eine Frage. Wie weit ist denn die Interesse der Softwarefirmen, dieses System heute zu unterstützen oder überhaupt zu unterstützen? Kann man fragen. The interest of software developers. Can you describe which companies maybe contacted you, or how many?
Well, it depends what sort of software developers you're talking about. I mean, there is some interest, some passing interest for entertainment software, but I mean, clearly Hyperion are the people most likely to be involved here. But there will not be sufficient numbers in this marketplace, in the traditional Amiga marketplace of a few thousand users, to interest any of the big people. So people will, I think, the majority of software development will be specific stuff which is saleable in the industrial market, so maybe isn't of any interest to you. And a lot of that will tend to be bespoke anyway. So it will be written, purpose written. And so we have quite a number of individual people who are interested in that area. But in terms of mass-produced games and all the rest of it, I think the best people here to talk to are Hyperion.
Okay, also es sind einige Titel angekündigt, intern. Welche Titel das sind, können wir leider noch nicht sagen. Das ist Quintessenz.
We finished?
Any more questions? Das ist eine Frage an Hyperion dann. Das kommt gleich, glaube ich.
Okay, well I think that's it. So thank you very much for coming, for your attention, for giving me a hard time. And if you want, I'll be here all day, so by all means you can talk to me individually. Thank you. Sorry I can't speak German. I was thinking to that projector, it's so hot.